I'm Marty Kessler tonight. No, I can't fill those shoes, but I am trying to at least fill in for him while he enjoys the beaches of Florida, him and the family. It's sad that I'm sure a damper will be on his little vacation with the things that went on this afternoon. In case you hadn't heard on the news, they had a shooting in South Florida at a high school. 18-year-old kid pulled a fire alarm so they would all run out and just started picking them off. And I think it was, at the last count I heard was 17 already dead and quite a few in the hospital. It's very sad to me, but we were in the meeting tonight with the elder meeting, and Bob says it's something that we probably ought to remember, that we have no guarantees, and we're all going to meet the Lord one way or the other. He's going to greet us and send us one way or the other. Johnny had a ball player named Shea Morrison, I believe is his last name. And at the ball game last night, his dad had a fatal heart attack. And his dad was the assistant fire chief in Midwest City, and in his 40s. So, you don't expect that in your 40s, but we don't expect our death when we get it, I don't think. I think we're all figure we got another day or two left into us. We'll take care of all that stuff tomorrow. But that's not part of our lesson tonight. But it is a cautionary thing that we have no guarantees. If we can't take the next breath, it's over. And so it's a good time to probably reflect and see where we stand in the Lord. It's something we should do every day, just like looking in a mirror to comb our hair. We need to look in God's mirror and make sure we're ready to meet the Lord. Okay, that being said, we are in Joshua. Joshua chapter 7 is where we'll start. Actually, we'll start a little bit before that. We'll start at about the 26th verse of the previous chapter 6. And let me line up some readers if I can. Anybody want to take 6:26 to 7:5? Do I see any hands, or do I appoint? Okay, Bonnie. I also need 6 through 9, chapter 7. Somebody want to hook that one? Volunteers, okay. And we'll do, we'll hold it there and pick up the rest of them and see how we go. Before we start, you remember, we'll just kind of review quickly here. Jericho has fallen in chapter 6. And you remember what they were supposed to do after the victory? They're supposed to wipe them out, burn it down, burn it to the ground, totally destroy the city with all of its contents. Burn it to the ground except for who? Rahab. Rahab and all those that she could get into her household. So they, in effect, were rejecting Jericho and accepting the Lord's protection. The gold, the silver, the bronze, and the ivory vessels were to go to the Lord for the treasury. No spoils to the victors this time. And that was the custom. Usually when they conquered a city, it was all you could carry. Just take it out and go. Then if you could put it in your pocket, you could take it home. So if you could carry it out there. But that wasn't the case here. God says, I get the spoils this time because I gave you the victory. It wasn't the guys marching around making the wall fall down. But instead, it was God that gave him the victory. He said, I'll give you the victory. And Joshua's charge in the 26th verse, well, let's read that because we're going to do it anyway. The 26, 7 through 5, okay? Who had that? Bonnie, did you have that one?
Yes.
Would you please read that for us?
You need to talk just a little bit longer.
Cleaning her
I
glasses.
gotta clean my glass.
Oh, okay. Cleaning your eyeballs there?
Sorry. All right. Verse 26 to 7:5.
Yes.
All right. Joshua laid an oath on them at that time, saying, "Cursed before the Lord be the man who rises up and rebuilds this city, Jericho. At the cost of his firstborn shall he lay its foundation, and at the cost of his youngest son shall he set up its gates." So the Lord was with Joshua, and his fame was in all the land. But the people of Israel broke faith in regard to the devoted things. For Achan, the son of Carmi, son of Zabdi, son of Zerah, of the tribe of Judah, took some of the devoted things, and the anger of the Lord burned against the people of Israel. Joshua sent men from Jericho to Ai, which is near Bethaven, east of Bethel, and said to them, "Go up and spy out the land." And the men went up and spied out Ai. And they returned to Joshua and said to him, "Do not have all the people go up, but let about 2,000 or 3,000 men go up and attack Ai. Do not make the whole people toil up there, for they are few." So about 3,000 men went up there from the people, and they fled before the men of Ai, and the men of Ai killed about 36 of their men and chased them before the gate as far as Shebarim, and struck them at the descent. And the hearts of the people melted and became as water.
Okay, thank you, Bonnie. So what was Joshua's charge to them? The curse, I guess I should say, rather than a charge. Yeah, if you try to rebuild it, what happens? First guy loses his firstborn. I'm sorry? Yeah, the youngest one. That was whoever set the gates. That's who finished the job. In other words, that's what he's saying. Whoever starts it, going to lose their firstborn. Whoever finishes it by putting up the gates, that's the last step. And they're going to lose their youngest son. And if you look over in Kings chapter 16 and verse 34, if you want to mark that down, that's where we see that happened. And when they did rebuild the city. And it happened that he puts it in there so he can see that what Joshua promised through God's inspiration, that's what happened. So okay, we are ready there. Now the chapter starts in chapter 7 with the children of Israel committing a trespass regarding accursed things, some versions say. And who was it that decided he didn't want to follow that? Achan. Achan says, "I think I can use some of this." And it's kind of interesting because I started looking up some of the costs, and I'll get to those in just a minute, on what he actually stole at the value of today's value, according to a couple of sources. Remember what tribe he was from? Judah. And it's interesting that he stole that, and Judah was the tribe that was to get the most when they got to the promised land. They were promised the largest section. And Achan couldn't wait. He decided he wanted his now, and he'd take it. And the problem goes national now because Achan is part of Israel. And God says, what influences one is going to influence the others. So God's saying, I'm not letting you get away with this. And so what answer was Joshua given to start off with? When he sent the spies, what did they tell him?
2,000 or 3,000.
Yeah, just 2,000 or 3,000. It's a piece of cake. A couple of the commentaries I was looking at said that the city of Ai, or Ai, whichever way you want to call it, had a population of about 1,200. Now you think there's 3,000, 2,000 or 3,000 going. Yeah, Bill?
It's interesting to say 2,000 or 3,000 because back in Joshua 4:14, we're talking about 4:13, talking about those men that went across before the priest and the armed men that went forward. Shows that 40,000 armed for battle crossed over the plains of Jericho for war. So here he has 40,000 in his command, but the people are saying just send 2,000 or 3,000. we can
Yeah,
make
we
that.
got 40,000 troops, so we'll send 2 or 3,000, because it'll be a piece of cake, be a cakewalk, kind of thing. No big deal. Have we heard about that in history before? When people, anybody remember Custer? Yeah, piece of cake. We just ride in there, and all the Indians of the world will ride down on us. And this is kind of what happened to them. They walked in and they thought this was going to be a piece of cake, and they didn't even get to the battle. Technically, they turned around and ran. I don't know if these guys from Iowa were scary looking, or if they, maybe they look like the Mongols, that you see with the big mask stuff, and maybe scared. Whatever it was, they turned around, turned their back, as it says, on the enemy and ran. 1,200 people's in Joshua 8:25, by the way, in case you were looking for that. I just looked out my notes here. We won't need a whole fighting force. And really, only 36 guys were killed out of 2,000 to 3,000. And you wouldn't think that would run them off, but it did. And it melted their hearts. It became like water. In other words, their courage just fell right out. We can't do this. What happened? They were expecting another Jericho. How many people got killed in the Battle of Jericho that were Israelites? No, we don't have any record of anybody dying, do we? This is the first loss that they've had in a battle. And all of a sudden it's like, whoa, this is what it's all about. And we couldn't even beat a town of 1,200. How are we going to take the promised land? And after all, Joshua had been promised. If you remember, he'd been promised that every place that the sole of his foot would tread, God had given him, as he promised to Moses. That's first chapter and third verse of Joshua. Every place that the sole of his foot would tread, God had given him as he promised Moses. So Joshua basically had assured the people that victory was theirs. We don't have to worry about it because God's with us. Look what he did in Jericho. This ought to be pretty easy. I'll go ahead and I'll send this little, this small force against this ragtag army, if they've got any army at all, and it should take care of it. Excuse me. The scriptures tend to indicate that they fled even before they really went into armed conflict. And they chased down the 36th. They were the slowest guys. It's kind of like the guy with the bear. The bear got after 2 guys, and he said, we can't outrun that bear. He said, no, all I got to do is outrun you. And he'll take care of you. So it's kind of what they were. The last 36 were a little bit slow getting there, and it cost them. But the rest of them took off in great force and ran and got back to say, we didn't win. And Joshua, well, of course, he's shocked. He's stunned, if you could use that. Let's look at 7 through 9, or 6 through 9, I guess it would be. Who did that? I forgot. It was over here. Yeah, okay. At Joshua 6 through 9, there's just 3 short verses there.
Then Joshua tore his clothes and fell to the earth on his face before the ark of the Lord until evening. He and the elders of Israel, and they put dust on their heads. And Joshua said, Alas, Lord God, why have you brought this people over the Jordan at all, to deliver us into the hand of the Amorites, to destroy us? Oh, that we had been content and dwelt on the other side of the Jordan. O Lord, what shall I say when Israel turns its back before its enemies? For the Canaanites and all the inhabitants of the land will hear it and surround us and cut off our name from the earth. Then what will you do for your great name?
Okay. Y'all watching the Olympics? Anybody watching the Olympics, interested in the Olympics? You remember back when the Wide World of Sports was on, and Kurt Gowdy would always start off with the agony or the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat? This is Joshua. What happened? Where did we go? As the guy goes flying off the ski jump, off the side instead of off the front, that's kind of the way Joshua felt. He's looking at his army going off the side, not doing what they were designed to do, what they should have done. He's scared. And he went to a mourning. Actually, it's the way they used to do it. They'd fall on their face and cover their head with dirt. And this was the way they would show their remorse, their agony. Well, this is the first soldiers that Joshua has lost. And the first battle, of course, as well. So he goes into it and he lays there in front of the ark until evening. Now, I don't know what time he laid down, but I think the message is that he was there for quite a while. And he tore his clothes. He went prostrate before the ark and poured the dust on his head. And then what happened? Although that's verse 7, I guess. We didn't read that far, did we? Yeah, we did, 6 through 9. What happened in verse 7? It's ring a bell from somewhere else, anywhere? What's he say?
They may die, but you'd better off stay on the other side of Jordan.
Yeah.
He's here if you're not going to protect us.
Exactly.
But he told them, be of courage, be strong, be of good courage, because I'm with you, I will fight for you. But again, they didn't call upon the Lord. The spies went out, brought back a bad report. That happened again. What happened to Joshua and Caleb? They went out, brought back a bad report.
Yeah. You remember Moses?
Same thing.
Moses did this at least twice. Once when God was going to destroy all the people and make Moses a new lineage. And Moses said, wait a minute, Lord. In the first place, he didn't want no part of that. It was all he could do with what he had, I think. That's at least my opinion. He didn't want to go any further than that. But he said, wait a minute, Lord. He says, if you do that, what are the neighbors going to say? They're going to be talking about you. And they're going to say, yeah, he's a God. He promised them this and then let them in there and they got slaughtered. And God would have wiped them out. But he saw, Moses made a good case, and God, not that God didn't understand that, but God got angry just like we do. And then he reflected a little bit, says, no, that's probably not the best idea. But in the meantime, I'd sure like to, And Joshua, bless his heart, he's feeling a burden of command. And the leaders are the one who the blame falls upon, supposedly. We do that in the elders' meetings. We have an elder of blame every month. We appoint somebody different. And that's the guy that's responsible if anything goes wrong. Although we haven't held our feet to too much of the fire, so, But he was the same way. In World War II, I read where Eisenhower wrote a letter that blamed himself if D-Day failed. He already had it made up because he wasn't sure whether he was going to have a victory or a defeat. He didn't know if he'd get pushed back in the ocean. He didn't know what was going to happen. They were going in lousy weather. And he wrote this letter that says, it's my fault. He didn't have to send it. D-Day was successful. But he felt that strain of command, that the responsibility of an army, of men's lives. No officer ever wants to send his men into combat because he knows he's going to lose some, and yet that has to be done. Well, Joshua was for the first time feeling this, and he's feeling a loss. Now, you can imagine the high he had with Jericho. Took it down and nothing, didn't lose a soul. On his side, everybody else got slaughtered, and everything was burned, and everything was done like God said, he thought. And now, all of a sudden, he's dealing with why this failed. Why did it fail? If I can send 3,000 armed soldiers to a town of 1,200, and they don't even get there. He's saying, what did I do wrong? Something's wrong. I know the other nations are going to talk about you. God, tell me what was wrong. I don't understand. And while he's doing his whining, I guess you could say, his agony, anyway, and God tells him, quit whining, get up. Stand up. You don't have to worry about what the neighbors are going to say. Moses, don't worry about what the Pharaoh's giving you bricks to build without straw. I'll take care of it. Well, as God pondered eliminating Israel, Joshua's pondering whether or not Israel is going to be eliminated by their enemies. He even goes as far as to say, well, why didn't you just let us stay over on the east side with the half-tribe of Manasseh and that group over there on the east side of the Jordan? Not even have to go in here. We'd have been happy over there. Remember the people in the wilderness? God, why'd you send us out here to die? We don't have any water. We don't have any food. We're out in the middle of the desert, and here comes the Egyptians. Now, Joshua was thinking, who's coming next? Canaanites, Amorites, Hittites, Hivites? We're going to fight all them people. So who's coming next? And if we can't whip 1,200 people, how are we going to whip them? They're going to get their courage back. Jericho frightened them to death. Crossing the Jordan frightened those people to death. They got God on their side. He split the Jordan River wide open in flood season, let them walk across, brought the whole army over here on our side, and the first place they hit is Jericho, and they don't lose a single soul. And they didn't have email. They heard about it. They were scared. Their hearts melted, it says. Now what happens? Here's the Israelites, and their hearts are melting over 1,200 people and losing 36 soldiers. The taste of the agony of defeat, not the taste of victory. He had that. He was high on that, and then gets down, and now he's on his face saying, what happened? Let's do 10 through 15, if we can read that. Did I assign anybody for that? Somebody want to take it? Okay.
The Lord said to Joshua, "Get up. Why have you fallen on your face? Israel has sinned. They have transgressed my covenant that I commanded them. They have taken some of the devoted things. They have stolen and lied and put them among their own belongings. Therefore the people of Israel cannot stand before their enemies. They turn their backs before their enemies because they have become devoted for destruction. I will be with you no more unless you destroy the devoted things from among you. Get up, consecrate the people and say, consecrate yourselves for tomorrow, for thus says the Lord God of Israel. There are devoted things in your midst, O Israel. You cannot stand before your enemies until you take away the devoted things from among you. In the morning, there you shall be brought near by your tribes. And the tribe that the Lord takes by lot shall come near by clans. And the clan that the Lord takes shall come near by household. And the household that the Lord takes shall come near by band. And he who is taken with the devoted things shall be burned with fire, he and all he has, because he has transgressed the covenant of the Lord, and because he has done an outrageous thing in Israel.
Get up. Can't doesn't that sound like a parent to a child? Get up. What are you laying there whining for? Get up and just put on your big boy pants and let's go get something done about this. And he told him what it was. He says, you've got somebody here that's lied and stolen from me. Not from you, but they've stolen from me because I was the victor at Jericho. I was the one that should get the spoils, and somebody else decided they were equal, that they deserved the spoils. So he says to Joshua, he said, they've stolen the seed. You remember Ananias and Sapphira? I think we've talked about that before. What did they do? Did they steal from God? Yeah. They could have said, Peter, we kept a little bit to ourselves because we needed it for groceries. Or, the baby's been sick, we got a hospital bill to pay. They could have told Peter, and they would have been okay. But instead it said, oh, this is all of it. Here it is. And they hid it. And God punished them, didn't he? Do we consider it just? Yeah, most of us do. Just punishment. If you lie to God, he's going to have his justice served. Well, here God is telling him, he says, I got justice to serve, and you need to help me out. You need to find out what's going on. And the usual procedure, as I said before, was for him to keep it. So maybe Achan thought, well, I'll go ahead and keep it. God won't miss this. It's, compared to everything else that he's going to get. So he could have gotten the gold, the silver, animals, all that stuff went to God. So Joshua was told to investigate, and the Lord would reveal the perpetrator. Now, how he does that, we're not told exactly how he selected. Most of the scholars think it was probably by lot, because they did that a lot. They would cast the lots, and it would come up with black stones and white stones, and if it was a black stone, or if it was a white stone, that was one thing, and the other was the other. Some think it might have been the breastplate that the high priest wore with the Thurim and the, is it Thurman? And what was the other one? The Thummim, I can't remember. There was two stones, put it that way, that they would actually show God's verdict, okay, on certain situations. If you went to the high priest and you presented your case, and then one of the other of these stones would light up as like a yes or a no. And that's the way I have it pictured. Now, it may be different than that because we weren't there, but we do know that both systems were used in God's judgment. So I kind of go along with the lots thing because there were so many of them. There's so many people there, the many tribes. All 12 tribes were to come before Joshua the next morning. And then God would select. Somehow he would reveal who that perpetrator was. So all 12 tribes presented themselves. And what tribe got caught? Judah. Okay? So the tribe is there. And the Urim and Thummim. There you go. That's the two. I wrote it down here so I'd remember. So then there was the next of was the clan next. That was the divisions, or the family, if you would, of Zarhites. Is that what we called him a while ago? We can mispronounce these guys because they've been dead and they can't complain about it. So for a long time. And then they got the families of those, and out of the families, then Zabdi was taken, and the man out of his family, they went man to man and came up with Achan as being identified as the culprit. So God showed Joshua who it was through some form of judgment. And it's interesting to me, we went to 15, didn't we? So we need to go a little further. Who wants to take 16 through 21? Anyone want to volunteer? I'm talking so much, I'd like to have somebody else read. Ron, how about you? Will you read that?
15, 16?
Yeah, 16 through 21.
So Joshua rose early in the morning and brought Israel by their tribes, and the tribe of Judah was taken. He brought the clan of Judah and took the family of the Zarhites, and brought the family of the Zarhites man by man, and Zabdi was taken. When he brought his household man by man, Achan the son of Carmi, and the son of Dabdi, the son of Zerah, and the tribe of Judah was taken. Now Joshua said to Achan, "My son, I beg you, give glory to the Lord God of Israel, and make confession to him, and tell me now what you have done. Do not hide it from me." And Achan answered Joshua and said, Indeed, I have sinned against the Lord God of Israel. This is what I have done. And when they saw among the spoils a beautiful Babylonian garment, 200 shekels of silver, a wedge of gold weighing 50 shekels, coveted them and took them. And there they are, hidden in the earth in the midst of my tent with the silver under it.
Okay, thank you, sir. Joshua, to me, was a great judge. And the reason I say that is he could have approached Achan, standing in front of him and saying, you know, you thief, you sinner, how stupid could you be? All those things would have been appropriate for him. He could have said that, and they all would have been true. But he didn't say that. He called him my son. And I thought that was really interesting that he would direct, you know, in kind of a peacemaking thing. He didn't want to lay that extra on him. What he did was wrong. What he did was sin. But he was still treating him in a loving and kind way.
My son compassionately.
Yeah.
And he gave him the opportunity. And what did he say? He said, I have sinned
Exactly.
against him.
He cared for the person. He
He
cared.
condemned him himself. He let him condemn his own self.
And, you know, I think about what, you know, the Lord telling us I'm paraphrasing, that, you know, we love the sinner but hate the sin. And this is what I see in Joshua here, kind of, you know, that premiere of what Christ would bring forth much harder. You know, but here Joshua says, my son, you know, I'm sorry. You know, I feel sorry for you. I hurt for you. But now you got to tell me the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Okay? You're going to tell God through me. When you tell me, God's going to hear it. And this is your opportunity to say what you did, to confess your sins. So he does that. Of course, you know, I mentioned how they selected it, but now he's there, and not only does he confess his sin, but he goes into great detail when he confesses his sin. And that's 22 to the end of the chapter. So I need a reader. Rich, go ahead, bud.
So Joshua sent messengers, and they ran to the tent, and there it was, hidden in his tent with the silver underneath. They took the things from the tent, brought them to Joshua and all the Israelites, and spread them out before the Lord. Then Joshua, together with all Israel, took Achan, son of Zerah, the silver, the robe, the gold bar, his sons and daughters, his cattle, donkeys and sheep, his tent, and all that he had to the valley of Achor. Joshua said, why have you brought this trouble on us? The Lord will bring trouble on you today. Then all Israel stoned him, and after they had stoned the rest, they burned them. Over Achan they heaped up a large pile of rocks, which remains to this day. Then the Lord turned from his fierce anger. Therefore that place has been called the Valley of Achor ever since.
Okay, thank you, Rich. So Achan confesses in detail. He succumbed to what we refer to as the lust of the eye. It looked good. I'd like to have it. What'll it hurt? I'll take it. Yeah, Billy?
In verse 15, it says, he who is caught with the devoted things shall be destroyed. But if you get over there, the latter part of that verse 25 to 26 there, it's not only him, it's his wife, his kids, his cattle, his sheep, his tent. The entire essence of this person's existence is going to be destroyed and burned and then thrown rocks on top of it. But the Lord first said to Joshua, he who has done this thing will be destroyed. And of course the penalty for that is not only him, but your whole family.
Yeah. There's a lot of scholars that debate on that particular verse. It's a very tough verse for them in the original language, because they said, did all of his kids go, or did they take them to the valley to watch this, to imprint it on their brain? I'm kind of with you. I think that he took all of them, and when God passed the judgment on Jericho, he said everything, everybody, all the cattle, all the kids, all whatever, okay, it's all going to be destroyed. Well, Achan threw his lot with Jericho when he took the stuff. He turned against God's command and took Jericho's side. So the justness to me is the fact that he got what Jericho got. He wants Jericho's stuff, there you go. If you're in sin, you're going to influence people. It's hard to think that and I'll tell you in just a second about how much that he was talking about here. It's hard to think that his family didn't know anything about it. I mean, he buried it under his tent floor, so they probably had to know something. Yeah, Bill?
The tribe of Judah, and that's where Christ is going to come from. This
Yeah.
has to be purged totally.
Oh, yeah.
We can't let any of this go on any further.
Yeah, that's true. Because he brought out of the tribe of Judah, and that was the promise. That was where the king was going to come from. The Savior, the Messiah, was going to be out of the tribe of Judah. It had been prophesied. And here we got this guy that's really shooting their reputation right out the window. Is what he's done. He confesses in detail. He says, the lust of the eye. I saw this beautiful, beautiful Babylonian robe. Okay, and if you've looked at some history pictures, they were tremendous. They were dyed, which was difficult at that time to find a purple color dye. They had to get, from what I understand, seashells from a certain place that would produce this dye. They had this. And then they would hand stitch details into this thing, and it was quite very expensive, and it was usually only worn in official duties, ceremonies, so they could be seen and oh wow, isn't he wonderful? Look at his coat, look at his robe, and so this caught his eye to start off with. I sure would like to have that. Where he thought he would wear it, I don't have a clue, but that's what, maybe he's just figured I'll show my people, like somebody steal a Mona Lisa and say, I'll keep it in the basement and I'll just bring friends over every once in a while to take a look at it. I don't know what he was going to do with it, but it caught his eye and it was something he wanted. And then he found the silver and 200 shekels. The street value today of a shekel of silver, which is measured by the ounce, is $20,740 for those 200 shekels. So we're looking at $20,000 that in just silver. What about the gold? 50 shekels in weight. It was some type of it wasn't a bar, but it was some kind of a spear or head or something. I'm not sure just what, but it was a block, and it weighed 1.5 pounds. Now, if you follow the gold market, street value of that per ounce is $1,318.50. Well, he had 50 shekels in weight, which made that $31,644. So he's looking at almost $50,000 worth of merchandise, not counting the robe. So it was pretty tempting. If you found $50,000 in your backyard, would you be tempted to keep it? Well, it might have been left there by John Dillinger, but who cares? Not our John Dillinger, machine gun John Dillinger. Sorry, John, I know he's watching tonight. But, it'd be some gangster, drops this in your front porch, well, you're tempted to keep it. I remember when I was a kid, I found a $20 bill. And, I want to keep it so bad. Mom says, no, you got to turn it in because it was at a grocery store and somebody will come back looking for it. So I turned it in. But boy, that was tempting to keep that $20 bill, especially when you were a kid. That was a lot of money. Because I lost one later. It wasn't the same one. And I found out how much it was worth when Mama had to replace that. But so what happens, Joshua then, is when he sees, how much he's told he's got, I've got $50,000 worth of merchandise buried under the floor of my tent. Well, Joshua sends messengers immediately going out there, and the urgency that you see is they ran. They wanted to get this thing over with. They wanted to get it done. Israel was on the wrong side of God. God was angry with them. They wanted to straighten this up pretty quick, and they didn't walk. They ran to his tent. And there they uncovered it, they looked at it, and it was just as he said it was. That the silver was on the bottom, the gold, and in the robe. He said, just like I told you, just like I left it. He brought it back, and Joshua had them laid out before the Lord and before Israel. So nobody could question what was going to happen. Nobody could question the punishment. This was part of Jericho. It doesn't belong to us. It belongs to God. Except he's tainted it now. So what do they do with it? They take, as Billy said, they take him and his family, his children, his cattle, his donkeys, everything that he had, including the booty that he got out of Jericho. And they burned it and got rid of it. It was tainted to God. He didn't want it after it had been stolen and been, and gotten ill-gotten goods, so to speak. And he said, I don't want to touch it. I don't want anything to do with it. That was supposed to have been there to begin with. This is what you get. And it shows Israel that it's not just the money that was involved, it was the sin that was involved. And because of the sin, it got utterly destroyed. Everything got destroyed. With the money or whatever, it'd be, burn that $50,000 we're talking about. You just burn it up because it didn't belong. Yeah, Bill.
Bob, was it at Ephesus where sorcerers and people that followed witchcraft and other things such like brought papers and books and other things like that, like little idols, and they brought them in when they become Christians in piles of it, and they destroyed them?
Yeah.
Didn't that happen in Ephesus?
I think so. I'd have to go back and look again.
But it's kind of the reason why I brought that up is because it is kind of an example that runs through the scripture that if we get this type of thing in our life, it is something that can cause us to stumble and fall away from God.
Yeah.
If this had not been found and he had been successful in hiding this and then possibly told other people as they went on and continued to battle, there may have been more that was stolen. And it might have caused problems because, as we all know, if a person is not well grounded and comes into money, Holy Hand, as it were, only knows what's going to happen to their life.
Yeah, it would have been a disaster all the way around.
Could be.
And you're absolutely right. God said this has been defiled, in His mind, and I don't want any part of it. It belongs to a sinful act, and I don't need it. I didn't need it to begin with, but I want to put it in the treasury. Yeah, Billy, go ahead.
When Jericho fell, in chapter 6, verse 19 over there, he's talking about, and all the gold and all the silver and all the bronze articles are sacred to the Lord and must go into the treasury because it's sacred.
Right.
Now you have this stuff that's stolen that should have went to the sacred sanctuary. Well, we can't put it there, and that's the sin, and that's why I answer the question why they destroyed it. It's no longer sacred.
It's been sanctified. Set apart. That was his key. Was he sets his treasure apart for his own treasury, and what they were going to do with it later? Well, when they decided to build the temple, why not start there? I don't know what they did with it at that point, but I do know that what God had commanded to happen to those in Jericho that possessed this stuff to begin with, that was all going to be destroyed. So it's what's good for the goose is good for the gander in a sense. In other words, you took it, you want to side with them, you're going to receive the same punishment that they got. That's fair. Although it doesn't, when you think about individually, you say, well, that was pretty tough. But when you put it in that aspect, that it was what the Jericho people got, and he sided with the Jericho people because he turned against God and did exactly what God commanded him not to do. He sided with them, and he gets the same punishment.
Verse, then the Lord turned from his fierce anger. Once they'd done this, remember the situation, the Lord turned from his fierce anger, and he is back with the people, and he's back with Jericho, and I'm your God, I had no other gods before me, do what I say. And he goes before him from here on out and wins battle after battle after battle. You get chapter 8 and 9 over there talking about the 31 different kings that he battled for, the people, and killed them. God went for it and done it for him. But he couldn't have done that with this sin hanging over Israel.
Right. They were tainted. They were not blemish-free any longer. They had been under the apron of God to begin with, and then they decided to, at least one decided, but it became, like I said, a national crime at that point. One thing before we quit, I know we got it, the bells rang, I think the second one's already rang, so when Achan broke the covenant, the punishment was the same. So our lesson out of this, I think, for me, would be the so what factor. So what? Well, our war is with principalities and powers, Ephesians says. And if we disobey God, our punishment is going to be burning also and death. So there's that, again, is it fair? In God's eyes, it's just, and it is just. And it's fair because he says, I've warned you. I've given you everything I can. I've protected you. I gave you Jericho, and what did you do? You spit in my eye, basically, and took something that didn't belong to you. So you get punished.
They would have given account for their own self, not for what Achan had done. We will give an account for ourselves, good or bad, be judged and burned. The whole family's not going to die just because I sinned, because now they're going to give account for their own sin.
No, but your sin could influence your family to sin. That's the key. That we can influence people because we do wrong. We can influence other people to do wrong too. And I think that's where he was coming from. That's why his family went. They were influenced. So, thank you for your attention. I know I went too long, but appreciate it and God bless.